Hi folks, welcome back. Today I wanted to tell you a little bit about how I use Google Plus in my classroom. Now first we need to set up a little bit with Google Plus. If you haven't used it before, you'll need to set up a profile for Google Plus. If you have Gmail or use any of the other Google apps, then you can access the Google Plus stuff. Let's take a look at that first. Right now I'm in my Drive folder and I can access Google Plus actually in two ways. You can go to the 9 squares here to get to all the Google apps, and so there Google Plus appears right there. It says Plus Andrew. For me, it won't say Plus Andrew for you unless your name happens to be Andrew. It's also available right here. So either way, you can access Google Plus here. I find it convenient when I'm using Google Plus with students to have just a centralized place where we can communicate, and they have this function called Communities built into Google Plus. So I'll go to Communities, and on this account I don't have any Communities account created yet, so I'm going to create a community for my students. If you're using a school address, you have the option to restrict to waukeeschools.org. Basically that means that only people with an email address that ends with @waukeeschools.org will be able to access. Our students don't have those addresses, so we're going to use not restricted. And then go to next. And then public versus private. I always like to do private on this, just so my students' work and their names and faces can't be viewed by people who aren't a part of our community. The only people I let into the community are my students, and if I get requests from them, my students' parents. So we'll go to private, and then you name your community, and I'm going to call mine AP Physics 1. Can people search for your community? I say yes, they can search for it and ask to join. I'll send invitations to my students, but they don't always go through correctly, so I like to be able to post a link to the community so they can get to the community and request to join if the link or if the invitation doesn't work out. And then we go to create community, and actually it'll find similar communities here. This one is my real Waukee Physics, AP Physics 1 community. So it'll ask you if you want to join one of the existing communities. We're creating a new one here. So create your own. Now as that's setting up, there are a few things that you can do to tweak this a little bit. Really not too much in terms of the appearance. There are just a couple of tweaks that you can make, but not much that you really have to set up. You can do a tagline, you can add a photo. All that stuff is optional though. You can pretty much just get going by clicking done. Now you can invite people to your community right away. You can do that at any time. So I'm actually going to close this to show you how to invite people to your community whenever you're ready for that. So I'll hit cancel. Now in order to invite people, there's a link here. If that doesn't show up, you can also go to the little gear here. That'll be all your settings for your community, and invite people is the first thing up on the list. So you might want to include a note about what this is for. For this demonstration I'm not going to. And then the to box, if you have people in your contacts or in your circles, which is what we do in Google Plus, instead of having friends, you have people in your circles. You can invite them that way. Otherwise, I'm actually going to go back to the email list I created using Google Forms earlier and invite people by email. So I'll go back to my student information responses sheet, which we created in an earlier video. And I've just filled this with my email address a few times here. I'll just click and drag and then copy, right click and copy, or you can do Control-C or Command-C on a Mac. Copy, and then back to my community, and I'm just going to paste those right there. Now mine was just the same email address over and over again, so it condensed it down to just one. This is my account, so I can't actually invite myself, but click send, and then that'll put email addresses out, or emails out to everybody, inviting them to your community. Everybody in your student email address list anyway. Once you get people in your community, there's a few things that you can do with Google Plus that really I think it's well suited for. Mainly discussions. So you can put content up on a website but really there's no interaction there. It's a one-way transmission of information. So discussions are really the only way that I use Google Plus in my classroom. I do a few different types of discussions, but one that I'm actually just trying out fresh right now is a discussion around some of the inquiry-style teaching stuff that some of the folks in our building have been looking at recently. So I'm going to show you how I'm setting that up for my students right now. Share what's new there. That's where you're going to post to your community. I'm going to share a video with my students. And so I have the video up in YouTube right now. I'm just going to highlight and copy that web address. And then back to Google+, I'm going to share a video here. And you can search for a YouTube video. Since I know the URL, I'm just going to enter the URL here and paste that. Then it'll give you a preview so you can make sure it's the right video and make sure that link works. And then add the video. And then for my, my post, I'm just going to write, please watch this video. And then reply to this post with 2 unique questions that came to mind as you watched it. Okay, 2 unique questions. I think that works well for a couple reasons. First off, the kids who answer earlier have an easier time of it, so there's some incentive to get this done early when you let them know ahead of time that it's going to happen. Unique also means that they have to read through previous questions and come up with some that weren't already expressed. So you get them reading what other people were saying there. The idea of unique there also stretches the kids, especially the kids who wait until the very end to get this done, really stretches them to come up with some deeper level questions. What I'm going to do with this in a day, I'm giving my students 24 hours to reply to this, and for my kids who don't have internet access at home, they'll be doing it in class. After a day, I'm going to ask them to go back and write another 2 unique questions. So they're going to have to read through all of the questions that have been written so far, so 2 times the number of students, and then come up with new questions, stretch them even further. And again, the later they act, the tougher it is to come up with unique questions. So it inspires some of our kids who might postpone this to go a little bit earlier on here. We're going to come back together in class then, so I will share that. My students will see basically the same screen that we're seeing right now. Now they can go in here and add a comment, and then they can comment on other people's comments as well. Once we have all those questions, and maybe you go through a 3rd round of questioning here if you really want to torture them by making them think very hard, and that is torture for our kids, we know that. Then we're going to come back and use those questions for some of our investigations. So maybe these questions you're using to help students form groups where people have similar ideas about things that they would be curious about. In a science class, I am going to use these questions to have kids design experiments. I want them to answer these questions using their experiments. So again, I might help with the grouping based on the questions that kids were interested in asking. My video is just a video of 2 different balls colliding in a few different ways, and then my kids are going to be looking at forces there. But you could do a variety of things for your prompt. So a reading would work well. A video of something other than bowling balls and tennis balls colliding might work better for you than it does for or it might work better for you than it does for me in this situation. But there's really a lot that you could post there too. Maybe it's just something that you want to write. You can actually record a new video in that as well. If I make a new post here and I want to do a video, you'll see one of the options is record a new video. So you can just do a webcam talk with them, ask them to think about a certain situation. So there's a lot of prompts that you could do there. I actually do some other lab prep work with this too, some more discussion stuff. And so with something like that, I would just post some questions that I want students to respond to. And so I might ask students to think about a pendulum in my class for physics, a pendulum swinging back and forth, I want them to figure out factors that influence the length of a period, of the time it takes to go back and forth there. And then I give them some options here, so they can suggest something that they think might influence the length of a period and describe why they think that would have an effect, so they have to justify their response. They can talk about some measurements or some experimental setup stuff that we would have to do to determine whether that factor or one of those factors influences motion. They can also talk about things that might throw off our measurements there. Or a fourth option is they can look at somebody else's post or answer to one of those three questions and respond in a meaningful, and I always put polite, way to those questions. I really like having the discussions online for some of these things. It still has some of the benefits of the group dynamic where kids get to see a wide variety of thoughts that prompt them to think in ways that they might not otherwise have thought. But it also has the added benefit that they're not in front of the class talking. That prevents a lot of our kids from sharing. It has the added benefit of they have time to think about what they want to say and how they want to phrase it. So you're likely to get maybe clearer responses to these questions than you do in the spur of the moment in class. You get to hear from everybody, or every student has the opportunity to read every other student's thoughts, whereas in class, if the kid isn't talking in class, then nobody gets the benefit of their insights. So I think there's a lot of benefits to using Google+, and it's quick and easy to set up, and the kids are familiar with the format. Even if they don't use Google+, I mean, they're online all the time. They know how to post in a forum or respond. They know how to comment on things from Facebook. So they know how to use the technology, and it's pretty fast to do also. So for your kids who don't have the technology at home, it's not a big issue to have them do it during class. You can get it done in just a couple of minutes there. So a lot of benefits, and the kids haven't ever complained about it for me, so they don't seem to mind too much either. They get a really nice jumping off point. We can have those discussions even when we don't have class time for it. That's my ideas on how to use Google+, but I would love to see your ideas on how you already do or how you might use Google+ in your classroom. You should definitely leave those in the comments below so that we can all see those and all benefit from your wisdom on those too. As usual, please let me know if you have suggestions for other things related to this video, ideas for other technologies you'd like to see explained, and how people are using those in their classrooms, or just if you got something out of this, share it with us. Thanks very much, folks. We'll see you next time.